Look at us, we're like vloggers on YouTube.
Oh my god.
Yeah, alright, okay, so hello! We're back again to explain to you lecture quiz number 2! Alright, so again we're joined to here, yes, me and my TAs, Enoch and Risa. So we're going to explain to you the questions and answers. So let's begin with question number 1, section 1, which is entitled on the fundamentals of Excel formulae.
So for question 1, we've basically asked how different formulae can actually be used in different scenarios. And of the 4 scenarios, we find that the 2 scenarios where the Excel formula were correctly used are A and C. Now, why is this so? In A, we see that Colin records his daily expenses during the December break, and he uses sum if formula to total the money he spent from 16th to 20th December. Now, the sum if function requires 3 inputs, including the criteria. Now, this will tell Excel what to check to decide whether or not to add a cell. So Colin can definitely use sum if in order to limit his sum such that those cells added are those that fall between 16th and 20th December.
Hello! Now, I'm recording this extra bit of video here and there to add into this lecture 2 quiz explanation, because after recording the initial video with my TAs, I realized that some of the things we could have done better with the quiz. The first question, the question 1 in section 1 is a little bit problematic. So let me explain. Okay, so first of all, option A is definitely correct. Yeah, in order for Colin to record his daily expenses during the December break, he can use the sum if function. Yeah, some of you might say, oh, but Danny can use the sum function to calculate daily expenses. Now, the sum function, yeah, I mean, in a sense, you're not wrong, but you're not quite right either, because if you just use the sum formula as it is, it will tabulate the sum of everything, right? But the problem is, we didn't really state that in the question. You have to carry a lot of assumptions in order to do that. Now, let me talk about option C. Now, that is a bit problematic, alright? Because you see, option C says Paige discovered some blanks in her data and uses the count formula to identify how many cells have been filled. Now, some of you tried this, and you realize that the count function only works for some kinds of data. Now, notice the ambiguity in the option that we gave you, right? If all the data were numbers, the count function would count all the numbers that are in the various cells. Yeah, and if there's a blank, it wouldn't count it. No issue. But if your cells contain text, the count function wouldn't really work, and you have to use this other function or formula called count A. And because of this, I think that's why some of you chose were a bit confused because of this ambiguity. So because of this, I'm going to say, yeah, okay, this is our mistake. Only now did we realize the mistake. So no issue. I'm going to moderate the marks. So as long as you did this question, whether you got it right or you didn't get it right at all, you're going to get 1 free mark. Okay, so that's our free gift from me to you, right? Yeah, I hope you understand that setting MCQ questions is not easy at all, right? Because we have to preempt a lot of interpretations, and sometimes when we ourselves set the questions, the ambiguities, we have several rounds of checks. This question was checked like three, 4 times by different people. It can slip past, and this is also why a lot of professors in many modules, they give you MCQ quiz for a test or exams. They will never release the answer, because once we release the answer, it means that we cannot recycle the questions, because you can pass it to your juniors and then nobody really learns. People just copy answers. So it is a lot of effort on our part to keep explaining quiz questions and give you the answers, because every time we do this, we have to create new questions for you. All right. Now, some of you are confused about option B. Option B, you can just do a Google. Can the text formula convert British English to American English? The answer is no. Yeah. So if you remember the lecture video, or if you go and Google, the text formula, you only converts things like numbers, currencies, or the date into text. That's all it does. It does not have any built-in function about British or American English, nothing like that.
Next question, section 1 on the fundamentals of Excel formulae, part 2. Alright. I love this question. This one is about the National University of Sang Nila Utama. Alright. Yeah. So over here we ask you the question, yeah, what should the sum if formula be, and calculate the total number of electives. Most of you got the part about the how many AUs correct, alright? Now, where most of you got confused is well, you notice some of the formulae in the options, right? You have in quotation marks elective, and in some cases you have in quotation marks equals elective, right? Now, the whole point of giving you all these options was so that you can copy the option and throw it into Excel to go and try and see if it works. Now, for all these Excel formulae, if it works lah. Okay, there's no, oh, you can't use this or whatever. If it works, yeah. So this was meant to be a giveaway mark. Anyway, so now we learn some of these questions I'm actually helping you by giving you hints. You can just copy and paste and see if it works. It's just to push you to try things lah. Okay, so okay, I think that's enough said. Let's move on to the next question. Alright, section 2 on pivot tables, part 1. So I'm doing a recording, another round of recording to demonstrate to you how to do the Excel in order to answer this quiz question, right? So the question tells you, use pivot tables or pivot charts to make a summary table of the distribution of cap by major. Find the average cap to 2 decimal places for the following majors. Alright, so what do?
First, you download the spreadsheet, and let me teach you a very nifty trick. You notice how when you open the spreadsheets, all the columns are the same size, and sometimes you can't see all the words, right? So select all the columns, all the affected columns, alright, highlight all of them. Now put your mouse cursor over the line separating the columns, like so. The mouse cursor will change to this thing with the 2 arrows. And then double click, and voila, Excel has resized the columns for you. You can read everything very nice and easily. Okay, now what do? We need to create a pivot table. So go to Insert, go to Pivot Table, and then click OK, right? Now the clue is this, we want the average cap by major. So you select major, put it and throw it to the row. I mean, if you wanted to, you can put it in column, but I like it in the rows, alright? So put it in the rows, and now we want what? The average cap. So you take cap, you put it to the values box, and then you click the I, or if you're using Windows, there's a down arrow button, click it, and select average. And voila! So depending on your question variant, you are asked to answer for whichever major that is asking you lah. So if your variant asks you about, let's say, global studies, for example, then you see here, global studies, it is 3.48. Yeah, 3.48, 2 decimal places. That's it. So that's how you answer this question, alright? Now, let's move on to the next question on pivot tables part 2, alright? Here, the question is asking, so it's a continuation of the previous, of the same question, and it says, use the slicer function and use it to slice and filter the information you have. Alright, so what do we want to filter? What do we want to slice to find out? So the question says we want to be able to filter by major and activate the slicer function to filter by psychology, so that we can input the number of students with cap from 2 to 2.99, from 3 to 3.99, from 4 to 5, right? So what do we need to do? First of all, we need to change the values box, okay? We got the major already, so that's fine. Now we want to know how many students. So you can just put something like the serial number. Now, sum of serial number doesn't make sense, right? We just want to count. Because by counting, we get to know how many people in every major, something like this. Okay, what's next? Now, we can use the slicer function, and we want to slice by major and by cap. Okay, so select major, select cap, then you click OK. So, depending on your question variant, you will be asked to do for a different major. So let's say you got the question that asks you to do for psychology. So just scroll down and you click psychology, and voila, right? We have sliced our pivot table. We have sliced our data to only have the people from psychology. Next, we need to do this, right? We want to know how many people got cap 2 to 2.99. So now everything that is colored in blue means that it's selected, right? So I want to know from 2 to 2.99. So I click, well, our lowest number is 2.81, right? And our highest within the 2 to 2.99 is 2.97. Now, so press the shift button on your keyboard and click 2.97. And you notice that just like that, we are slicing to select only the people from 2.81 to 2.97, And we know that there are 9 people. Alright, so our first blank from cap 2 to 2.99, we can put 9 people. Next one, we want cap 3 to 3.99. So where does it end, right? So we click and okay, 3.9 is our highest here. So we select that and we know that there are 16 people in 16 psychology majors. And then we want to know how many people has cap 4 to 5, right? So we select, click like that, and voila, we know there are 5 people. Okay, now I know some of you will be asking, do I really need to use a slicer in order to answer this question? Well, no, there are many ways to get the job done. This question is just an excuse to force you to learn and use the slicer function. I want you to know that this exists in pivot table because it can help you a lot in the group project. Hint, hint, star, star. We want to help you with the group project, so that's why we are teaching you the slicer. It can make your life simpler. But if you say, I don't need to use it for group project, okay lor, whatever rocks your world, right? We just want to give you more tools to help you with your analysis.
So let's move on to section number 3 on pivot tables and charts part 1.
Alright, so if you've done these 2 questions correctly, you'll actually find this table
on the screen.
Now, most of you got this right, but some of you who got this wrong will have put this option instead. The average cap is higher on the extreme left of the graph because the module students take in the first year are much easier to score. Now, you have no data on what module students actually took in the first year, so you can't actually reach this conclusion. The most reasonable conclusion that you can actually reach is that students were able to SU their poor performing modules, much like some of us might have done.
Yes, indeed.
Haha, guilty. You know, in my time, when I was an undergrad, we only have 2 SUs, and I only use 1. Flex. Okay, anyways, alright, so now the issue here is when interpreting data, we need to check our assumptions, right? So we need to ask ourselves, okay, this one sounds reasonable, this option also sounds reasonable. Which assumption is more reasonable? If we assume, is it safe to assume that a majority of students will take safe, easy modules? Not true, right? If everybody take easy modules, then what happens to the bell curve, right? If everybody takes easy modules, everybody score very well, then the bell curve will be very steep, right? Then it's not an easy module anymore, correct? So it's not a safe assumption to make. Some people like the intellectual challenge, so they take harder modules anyway, right? So what is a safer assumption to make? That most people SU, right? You look around you, the typical year 1 student, you take a stone, you throw, the fella has SU 1 or 2 modules, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay, next question.
This is part 2, a continuation of the same question. Yeah. So I'm recording this separately so that I can show you the Excel demonstration. So the question is saying, using the same data set, construct a pivot table showing the average latest cap for the different majors. So there are 2 questions. Which major has the highest average latest cap, and why is that the case? Alright, so how do you do this? Quite simple. You can just do a pivot table. You go to insert, pivot table, okay. And then you just go major, and then you go by cap, and now we want the average. So you click average, and then what's the which one has the highest one? So you look at everything. I teach you a trick. When you can highlight everything, and at the bottom of your status bar, okay, you can see what is the maximum value. In fact, you can choose what you want to show, right? I can have things like this and stuff like that, but so if you don't have it, you can enable. So the maximum value in your selection is 3.75125. So let's see who has 3.75125, shall we? It's communications and new media. Alright, so we can answer question part 1. So most of you got that right. The second part, why is that the case? Okay, so we have given you some hints. There are some possible answers, and you can just go and investigate it. How might you go about doing something like this? So let's run through the options. One possible answer is that the students from that major are smarter than students from other majors. Wow, this one you cannot infer from the data, right? So this one is definitely out. Next one, that major has stricter entry requirements. Only students who already had a high cap to begin with can enter it, so the results are skewed. Is this true of CNM? No, so we can cancel this out. Next one is that major is easier compared to other majors, therefore students can score more easily for that major. Again, you cannot infer that from the data. Next one is, it so happens that the major has significantly more year 1 students who can SU poorer results, thus raising the average latest cap for that major. Okay, this seems possible. Looks like something that we can infer from the data, right? So, how do we do this, right? Let me show you one quick way. You can use the filter function. So you go to the filter, enable the filter. How do we find only year 1 students? Well, if they're only year 1, that means their year 2 semester onwards will be a blank, correct? So let's filter out for and show only blanks for year 2 sem 1. Boom! So now we have all the year 1s in the respective majors. So let's look at how many year 1 students we have for CNM, Comms and New Media. We only have 4 year 1 students. Okay, how about the other ones? Okay, as you can see already, the other majors have more year 1s. Oh, look at that. English language has way more than CNM. Yeah. How about the others? Anyway, you get the idea, right? So we can definitely rule this option out. What's the next option? Not enough data to make an inference. Okay, we don't know this yet, right? So let's KIV this option. How about the next one? It so happens that the major has significantly more honours year students, and so their latest cap is the reason for raising the average latest cap for that major. Now, so again, let's assume, okay, that all year 4 all honours year students are year 4. So we don't want blanks at all, right? If there's a blank, that means this person is not a year 4, not an honours student, alright? So let's do this. So we filter the year 4 sem 1. Okay, because we don't know whether they're in year 4 sem 1 or year 4 sem 2, right? You know, maybe some of them go on internship or LOA to go and do funny things or whatever lah. Okay, so we do sem 1 instead of sem 2. We cut out all the blanks. So these are all the year 4 people. Let's see how many CNM people we've got. Okay, so we've got how many is that? We've got 8 CNM majors. And then you can go down the list again. Well, as you can see, we got some of the majors. We got just as many year 4s. Oh, global studies, so many year 4s. Look at that, right? So there's reason to doubt this hypothesis, right? So therefore, we can conclude that, well, there is not enough data to make an inference. There we go. Haha.
So the conclusion is, don't jump to conclusions.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You see, like me, I cannot do standing broad jump. How to jump to conclusion? Okay, never mind. The joke is so lame. I cannot jump anymore. Okay, never mind.
Alright, so the next question is section 4 on descriptive analytics apply. Here we have the spreadsheet. It's quite simple. By now you should know how to do the pivot table, right? So you select all the columns, click insert, and then pivot table. Okay, and then what does the question ask? So the first variant is based on the data set, which category takes up the largest share of overall expenditure. So you pull the category and then you pull the cost. Alright, then this is the sum of the cost already lah. Which one has the biggest number? Hygiene. Hygiene has the biggest expenditure. Ta-da! Okay, the other variants ask which category did the person buy the least? So you can go and see units. Alright, because we want to see the number of units, right, by the least. So which one has the least number of units? Sum of units, OI. My wife keeps saying that I cannot pronounce the word OI properly. OI. So OI has 408, the lowest among all the other units. Okay, so the next question variant asks, which of the following items listed below did the person buy the most? So here we're talking about specific items. So we pull the items and then we pull the units. Now, we need to go through the list and see which of the following items in the list. Okay, so we got toilet paper, wine, shampoo, and spinach. So what do we have? Toilet paper has 411, spinach has 309, wine has 454, and shampoo has 653. So looking at these numbers, the person bought shampoo the most in this list here?
So let's move on to the next question, section number 5, which is on VLOOKUP part 1. Alright.
So this question was actually very well done, but some people got it wrong. They selected a column with a search key so that you can search for information in an array of data. Now this is actually very important to put in your VLOOKUP, because if you don't have this input, how is VLOOKUP going to find the corresponding information in the other data set?
Yeah, so every time you have two spreadsheets and you want to merge them using VLOOKUP, it's always important to ask yourself which column has unique identifiers that appears in both spreadsheets, the common column with unique identifiers, alright? Okay.
And the fact that Jonathan mentioned column brings us to the correct answer, which is the row number. Now VLOOKUP works on columns, that's why it's called VLOOKUP. It's vertical.
Vertical column V.
What else do you think the V stands for? Vegetable, is it?
The row number is actually used for HLOOKUP instead, which works like VLOOKUP but on rows.
It's like horizontal.
Horizontal, yeah.
Not hello.
Okay.
Alright, let's move on to the next section. Section 5 on VLOOKUP part 2. This question has 4 options, which ask which of the following will mess up your VLOOKUP results. And the correct answer is all of them.
All 4 options will actually mess up your VLOOKUP results. So, most of you can see that statement 1 and statement 2 are problematic, right? But some of you are very confused about statement 3 and statement 4. So let's explain statement 3 and statement 4, shall we? Yeah.
Alright, statement 3 says not using the most precise lookup search key or lookup value possible. Now why is this important? It's because sometimes you'll get information where you have multiple possible matches. For example, 2 students will share the same name. What happens if you use an imprecise search key? You'll get back the same result for both students, even if they perhaps had different information.
Yeah, so for example, if you can use like metric number or NRIC, then that is more precise than the name, right? With names you get duplicates. With metric number, with NRIC is unique to that individual, so it is more precise, the match will be correct.
Okay, so for option number 4, not ensuring that your search key, lookup value, is in the first column of your array of data, also known as table array. Okay, so for how VLOOKUP works is that it searches for the search key in the leftmost column of your data array. If you don't do this, it's likely that the VLOOKUP will search the wrong column, which creates an error, as demonstrated on Enoch's face.
Ta-da! See, got error, right? Okay. Now,
Let me show you how to do the last question, okay? You have 2 spreadsheets. One is the master list, the other is the submission list, okay? Master list contains a list of all the students that you teach or in all the classes, and the submission list contains the list of students who submitted. So if they didn't submit, their names will not appear. That is very important to understand what is going on in the data, yeah? Now, why is this important? Before you rush into doing the VLOOKUP, we need to ask ourselves, where do we do the VLOOKUP? Because if you do the VLOOKUP in the wrong spreadsheet, your answers will all be wrong, right? So we need to really be thinking, like I said in lecture 1, just because it works doesn't mean that it works well. When you use computers, this kind of computational tools, they will always throw you answers, but not all answers are correct. Yeah, or Singaporeans like to say correct. Yeah, so okay, submission list. If the submission list contains the list of students who submitted and the list of doesn't contain people who didn't submit, which is a subset of which? So submission list is a subset of the master list. Now, what's going to happen if you VLOOKUP on the submission list? Because it's a subset, if you do it correctly, you will get all the names. You wouldn't get any NA at all. Why? Because I mean, these are students that belong to your class, right? So all of them will show up. Yeah. Now, so the correct place to do the VLOOKUP will actually be the master list, because as a subset, all the names that give you NA are the names that are missing from the submission list. But before we can do that, we actually need to take a closer look at the submission list. Now, if you scroll through the submission list, you're going to find that some names, so column B contains the NewsNet ID, right? And you're going to find that in column B, the names spill over sometimes. This actually happens in real life when I check who didn't submit their assignments. What we need to do is to do a quick filter just to check and correct. Okay, so what do we have to do? Well, submitted is either yes or a metric number. So let's get rid of all the submitted. And then all we have to do is Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V, right? So we have corrected all of this. Now, actually, if you think about it, for the VLOOKUP, we only need to VLOOKUP this thing because all we're doing is checking. We're not pulling information over, right? And like for example, tutorial activities or the other assignments, you want to pull information, then it matters that you highlight multiple columns. But here we are just checking who submitted, who didn't submit, right? So we can just go back to here. So let's begin our VLOOKUP, right? So equals VLOOKUP, all right? Find this Usenet ID. Look at it where? Find it where? In this, in just this one column, column B. If we find a match, then pull the information from column 1. And the last input will be 0, exact match. Never put 1, never put true. Approximate match, 1 and true will give you approximate match, which will just give you a lot of unpredictable results. So say 0 or false for exact match. Then close and enter. And like that. Okay, check. Okay, so just like that, filter, and then you get, and then we just get the NA. And that's all the people who didn't submit their assignments.
Okay. Okay. So I hope you had fun learning from us as we explain the quiz answers to you. So that's all from us for today. So we wish you a happy Chinese New Year from Panda, Risa, Enoch, and myself. Happy Chinese New Year. Learn well and Hwada! Okay, so bye bye, bye bye. Sorry, Chinese New Year. It is Chinese New Year. I eat all the pineapple tarts. Then now I'm fat and round, just like a pineapple. Get rich, get rich, get rich, get rich, get rich, get rich.
Yeah.